and welcome. In this video, I would like to teach you scanf and printf functions in stdio.h. Let's begin. In the previous videos, you learned about getChar, getS and putChar, putS functions. When we look at our previous examples for variables which are student ID, student name, gender and student average, using getChar and putChar, we can read and display gender, which reads a single character, M for male, F for female. And using getS and putS function, we can read and display student name, which is of string variable, which reads maximum of 100 characters. Then how we can read student ID and student average, which are of integer and float data type? Not only integer and float data type, C supports few other data types like double, long double, unsigned integer, etc. Then how to read them or how to display them? Or let's consider another scenario. We want to read student ID, student name, gender and student average values at one time. It means we want to read combination of different values at one time. For that, we should use scanf. Similarly, we want to display student ID value and student average value. How we can display? Because using putChar we can display only character and using putS we can display only string. So, to display integer values or float values and also other type values like double, long double, we must use printf. Let's take one more scenario. We want to display all these values at one time. So, to display combination of values, we should use printf. We already learned that when we are using any predefined functions, we must know the syntax. Now, let's see the syntax for the printf and scanf functions. This is the syntax for the scanf. We should write scanf control string. We already know that string should be represented between the double quotes. After that, we should write comma, and after that, we should write this symbol. This symbol is called ampersand symbol. We should write arg1 means argument 1, argument 2 and so on, argument n. Please also note that this ampersand symbol is also called address operator. Now, let's see the syntax for printf function. This is the syntax. Printf, we should write the control string. Again, string means we need to represent between double quotes. Comma, we must write argument 1, argument 2 and so on, n number of arguments. One more thing to note here, for this scanf, we must give arguments. But for the printf, arguments are optional. That's why I represented between opening angular bracket and closing angular bracket. It means we can use printf only with control string. Okay, we will see this with an example. And this scanf and printf functions are also called as formatted IO. It means formatted input is scanf and formatted output is printf. Now, let's see this scanf and printf function with an example. Let's go back to our example. We should write scanf. We should write control string. Now, as we are going to read any type of data with scanf, then how we can inform to the compiler, I am going to read particular type of data. Let's say for example, I want to inform to the compiler, read integer, read string, read character, read float or read double or read long double. For that, we must use format specifiers. Now, let's see the list of format specifiers available in C. These are the format specifiers available in C. For character, we should use %C. %C means character. For integer, we should use %d. For float, we should use %f. For string, we should use %s. One more thing to note here, format specifiers also called as conversion specifiers, and each format specifier begins with %symbol. Let's say first we want to read integer. For that we should use %d. Then I am giving space. I want to read string. Then %s space. We want to read character. %c space. We want to read float. %f. After that we should give comma. Then arguments. The first argument is integer argument, which is student ID, comma. The second argument is string argument, which is student name, comma. The third argument is character, which is gender. And the fourth argument is float, which is student average. Before continue writing the program, I would like to say to you one thing. This source code editor is small, right? Because now we are going to write few more lines. To see the source code editor in full screen, let's off this lock panel. This is called lock panel. And also let's off this manager panel. This is called manager panel. To off this manager panel and lock panel, we should click on view, click here, manager, or we can use shift F2. Let's off this. Okay, now the manager panel is off. Now to off this lock panel, you click view and click lock. Again, when we want to compile the program, we can on it back by clicking here, or we can use the function key F2. Now let's off this one. Now we can see the source code clearly in full screen. Let's continue our program again. One more thing to note here, for the string data type, this ampersand symbol is optional. If you give or if you don't give, also okay. Now I am not giving. And in the scanf, between the format specifiers, we must give only one space. Don't give more than one space. You may get unexpected results. This is because scanf is dealing with reading the data during the execution of the program and storing the data to the memory, means writing the data to the memory. And one more thing, before going to read the values, we must give a message to the user. Enter student ID, student name, gender and average. Then only during the execution of the program, he can understand what information he should give. This is because we are the programmers, we are writing the program. But this program is going to be executed by the end user. So we must always inform to the end user what information he should enter into the system. Now, to give information to the user, we should use printf. Now, let's give that printf. When we are giving information to the user, we must use printf function with only control string. No need of arguments. We are informing to the user, enter student ID, comma, student name, gender and average. And also remember that in which order you are reading the values, in that order only we should inform to the user. If you notice here, we use printf function with only control string. We didn't give comma and arguments. But if you want to display these values onto the monitor, we must use printf with control string and arguments. Now, let's display these values using printf function. We should write printf. Here we should write control string. Let's say we want to display student ID, student gender, student name and student average value. After that we should give comma. We should write the arguments. First we should write integer argument, which is student ID. After that we should write character argument, which is gender. After that we should write string argument, which is student name. After that we should write float argument, one more thing to note here, there is no need to match the format specifiers of scanf with the format specifiers of printf. It is our choice. It means we can read the values in whichever the order you want. You can display the values in whichever the order you want. But the arguments, the order of argument should match with the control string here. And one more thing to note here, in the scanf function we should give only one space, but in the printf function we can give spaces of our choice. Let's say I given only one space here. I can give 2 spaces, 3 spaces, like that. Or I can format the data in whichever the way we want. This is because printf is dealing with displaying the data to the monitor. So, while displaying the data, we can format the data as per our choice. More about formatting the data using printf we will learn in the next videos. Now, let's keep only one space, and as printf and scanf functions are available in stdio.h, we must include stdio.h in the linkage section. Okay, and before going to show you the execution of this program, I would like to say one more thing. We know that integer occupies 2 bytes onto the memory, and this variable has a location in the memory. That location is called memory address. It means each variable has a memory address. Let's see the memory representation for these 4 variables. This is the memory representation. For the student ID, 2 bytes will be allocated. Let's assume the memory address of the student ID is 5001, and as this is a variable and we didn't assign any value at the declaration, right? If you didn't assign any value to the variable, then what is its initial value? Initial value means starting value. That is unnecessary value. Unnecessary value is also called as garbage value. It means whenever we declared a variable, its initial value is not given, then it will have a garbage value. So let's consider this is the garbage value assigned by the compiler. Similarly, for the student name, 100 bytes will be allocated. Let's assume this address as 5003 and this is the garbage value. Similarly, for gender, let's assume the address 5153 as it occupies 1 byte and its garbage value, let's assume, is this one. Similarly, student average occupies 4 bytes. Let's assume this memory address is 5154 and let's assume this is the garbage value. This is the declaration part. Later, when the user give the value student ID, name, gender and average, then the scanf will read the values given by the user and it will store onto the particular variables. Then these garbage values will be replaced with user given value. Then those values will be displayed by the printf function. Now let's on log panel, click view, click logs. Let's save this program, compile and run. Now our program is compiled successfully. Before running this program, we will give /n here so that once the information is displayed, it will move to the next line. And also we should change this to student average because this is a float value. Now let's save this, compile and run. Now we should give student ID space, student name space, gender space, average. Let's press enter key. Now scanf will read these values and printf is displaying these values. And we already know that float will give maximum of 6 decimals. As we given only 2 decimals, the other 4 are represented as zeros. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like this video, please click on like button. Please also subscribe to our channel and click on notification button. Please do comment and share. See you next time.